Vera shifted on the bench and glanced down at Alara's ankle again, the ice pack already beginning to sweat against the skin. "All right," she said after a moment, standing. "Hop on." Alara blinked up at her. "What?" "My back," Vera clarified, turning slightly and crouching in front of her. "Come on." Alara hesitated, arms folding instinctively. "That's not necessary. I'm fine." Vera glanced over her shoulder, unimpressed. "You were just told to stay off it." "I can walk." "You can limp," Vera corrected, which would be a great way to make it worse. Alara opened her mouth to argue. Vera cut her off before she could. "You're going to be in the finals, Finch," she said, tone firm but not unkind. "If you mess that ankle up now, how exactly are you planning to play the most important match of the year?" Alara frowned at the ground for a moment, clearly weighing the argument. Annoyingly, Vera had a point. "Fine," she muttered. Vera's grin appeared instantly. "Knew you'd see reason." "Don't get used to it," Alara said dryly. She carefully climbed onto Vera's back, trying not to put too much pressure on her ankle as she wrapped her arms loosely around Vera's shoulders. Vera stood easily, adjusting her hold on Alara's legs. "Comfortable?" "No," Alara replied immediately. Vera snorted. "Good." They started across campus, the late afternoon sun stretching long shadows across the walkways as students drifted between buildings. For a few minutes, they walked in quiet. Then Alara shifted slightly. "You can put me down now." Vera didn't slow. "I don't think you'll make it all the way there," Alara added. Vera scoffed. "You underestimate me, Finch." "Your stamina isn't the issue," Alara said thoughtfully. "Your ego might be." Vera huffed out a laugh. "You're the one riding on my back. And yet somehow you're still the one being insufferable." Vera adjusted her grip slightly as they turned down the path toward the dorms. "You're lucky I'm nice." Alara leaned forward slightly. "You tackled me on the field 3 games ago. That was strategy. You kicked the ball directly into my shin. That was also strategy." Alara rolled her eyes against Vera's shoulder. "Your definition of strategy is concerning. Your definition of dramatic is concerning." Despite herself, Alara felt the tension in her chest ease a little. Being this close to Vera again, after the last week of distance, felt strange. Strangely right. They reached the dorm building a few minutes later. Vera carried her inside without complaint. Once inside, Vera gently lowered her onto the bed, making sure her injured ankle stayed elevated. "There," Vera said. "Doctor's orders." Alara looked down at her ankle, then back up at Vera. "You didn't have to carry me the whole way." "I know." Vera stepped back slightly, running a hand through her hair. "Go take a shower," she said. "I'll grab something for you to eat." Alara blinked. "What?" "You must be starving," Vera said casually. "You don't need to do that," Alara said quickly. "You've already done enough." Vera leaned lightly against the wall, shrugging. "I just want to look after you." She met Alara's eyes then, the teasing tone softening slightly. "You'll let me do that much, right?" Alara hesitated. A week ago, she would have refused immediately. Now, "All right," she said finally. "But there's really no need." Vera smiled faintly. "Good thing I'm ignoring that part." Alara watched her head for the door, something warm and complicated settling in her chest again. A short time later, Vera pushed the dorm door open with her shoulder, balancing a small paper bag and 2 drink cups in one hand. She'd changed. The football kit was gone, replaced with a loose dark hoodie and casual joggers, her hair slightly damp where she'd clearly rinsed off the sweat from the match. The shift made her look younger somehow, less like the intimidating captain everyone knew and more like just Vera. A smile tugged at her mouth as she stepped inside. She'd come back faster than she probably needed to. Her eyes immediately searched the room. Alara sat on the floor beside the bed, back resting lightly against the mattress. Her hair was still damp from the shower, a towel draped loosely around her neck, one leg stretched out carefully to keep pressure off the injured ankle. She looked up when the door clicked shut. Vera's smile widened slightly. Thought you might have fallen asleep already. Alara shook her head. Didn't want to risk you eating everything before I got a chance. Vera scoffed as she walked over. Please, I brought enough for two. She dropped down onto the floor across from Alara, setting the food between them and handing over one of the containers. The room settled into an easy quiet as they opened the boxes. For a while they just ate. No tension, no rivalry. Just conversation that came naturally. Small comments about the match, teasing remarks about missed passes and questionable referee calls. At some point, Vera leaned back against the bed frame, stretching her legs out. You know, she said between bites, I don't think we've ever actually sat down and eaten together before. Alara paused, thinking about it. They'd argued across lecture halls, sniped at each other on the pitch, worked through assignments with barely contained irritation. But this was different. No, Alara admitted. We haven't. She glanced down at the food in her hands, then back at Vera. It's nice. The word felt strange leaving her mouth. Vera didn't tease her for it. Instead, she smiled quietly, looking down at her own container. She'd missed this. Missed her. Alara set her empty container aside after a moment, brushing her hands together lightly. Vera. Vera looked up. Alara held her gaze for a moment. Thank you. For today. Her voice softened slightly. For coming to the field, helping me, carrying me all the way back here. She huffed quietly. I was really glad you were there. Something warm flickered across Vera's face. Yeah? She said softly. Alara nodded. Vera rubbed the back of her neck, suddenly a little shy. Well, someone had to make sure you didn't sabotage your own finals appearance. Alara raised an eyebrow. That's the only reason? Vera met her gaze, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. No. The honesty lingered between them for a second before Vera shifted the conversation slightly. So, she said, tilting her head, what actually got you into football? Alara's expression changed. It wasn't dramatic, just a subtle tightening around her eyes. My dad, she said after a moment. He used to take me to the park when I was little, every weekend if the weather was decent. A faint smile touched her lips as she remembered. He loved football. Obsessed with it, honestly. She glanced down at her hands. He said I had talent. Vera listened quietly. I bet he must be really proud of you, she said. Alara's smile faded slightly. Maybe. Vera frowned. What do you mean, maybe? Alara hesitated before answering. I wouldn't know. He passed away a few years ago. The words hung quietly in the air. For a moment, Vera didn't know what to say. Alara noticed the pause immediately, and before Vera could open her mouth, Please don't say you're sorry. Vera blinked. Alara looked back at her, expression calm but firm. I hear that every time it comes up, she said. And honestly, I find it exhausting. She shrugged slightly. I don't want people's sympathy. Everyone loses people eventually. I'm not the only one. Vera shook her head gently. Don't say that. Alara looked at her. Just because you're not the only one doesn't make the loss smaller, Vera said quietly. Her voice was steady. You have every right to be sad about it. She held Alara's gaze. And it's okay to want someone to comfort you sometimes. Alara studied her for a moment. Then she smiled softly. You can say such thoughtful things sometimes. Vera huffed quietly. Don't sound so surprised. Before she could overthink it, Vera reached out and placed her hand lightly against Alara's cheek. The gesture was gentle, grounding. You're amazing, Alara, she said quietly. He definitely would be proud of you. No doubt about it. For a second, Alara just stared at her. Her eyes widened slightly, the words catching her off guard. A warmth spread across her cheeks before she could stop it, heat blooming under Vera's touch. She hadn't expected that. Hadn't expected the certainty in Vera's voice, the quiet conviction. Something in her chest tightened, soft, fragile, and impossibly comforting all at once. Without really thinking about it, Alara leaned into Vera's hand. Just slightly. But enough. Vera's words had settled somewhere deep, warmer than she wanted to admit. And for a moment, Alara let herself stay there, resting against the gentle pressure of Vera's palm, the rare comfort of being seen that clearly. Alara stretched her arms above her head, the exhaustion from the match and the long day finally catching up with her. "All right," she said, letting out a quiet breath. "That's enough sad talk for one night." Vera raised an eyebrow. "I'm full. I'm tired," Alara continued, already shifting toward the bed. "And I have an ankle that's reminding me every 5 minutes that I'm supposed to be resting." She carefully pushed herself up and climbed onto the mattress, easing the injured ankle onto the pillows. "Better get some sleep. You're okay seeing yourself out, right?" Vera watched her for a moment. Then, without a word, she stood, kicked off her shoes, and lifted the covers. Alara blinked as Vera slid under them beside her. "What are you doing?" Vera settled comfortably onto the pillow like this was the most normal thing in the world. "What does it look like?" "It looks like you're getting into my bed." Vera glanced over at her, completely unbothered. "Aren't we having a sleepover?" she teased. Alara stared at her. "You really just do whatever you want, don't you?" Vera shrugged lightly. "I'm just worried you might roll over, fall off the bed, and destroy that ankle even more," she said, patting the mattress behind Alara. "I'm acting as a protective barrier." Alara gave her a flat look. "You're really milking this injury for all it's worth, aren't you?" Vera smirked. "I'm just taking the opportunities presented to me." Alara snorted softly. "Anyone would think you're happy I got injured." Vera's smile faded just a little. "No," she said quietly. "Of course not." She shifted slightly on the pillow, her tone softening. "Joking aside, when you're hurt, it kind of hurts me too." The honesty hung in the room longer than either of them expected. Vera looked away briefly, then back again. "Do you want me to go?" Alara hesitated. Her first instinct was to say yes. It would be simpler, safer. But the warmth beside her, and the memory of how empty the last week had felt, made the word catch in her throat. "No," she said quietly. Then, a little more firmly, "It's fine." She turned slightly onto her side. "Just get some sleep." Vera didn't argue. She shifted closer instead, gently wrapping an arm around Alara's waist, careful of her ankle. Within minutes, Vera's breathing slowed. She had fallen asleep almost instantly. Alara, however, remained awake. She stared up at the ceiling, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting quiet shadows across the room. How had they ended up like this? A few months ago, they'd barely been able to stand each other. Now Vera was asleep beside her like this was the most natural thing in the world. Alara turned her head slightly. Vera's face looked softer in sleep, relaxed, peaceful. Not the confident, sharp-tongued captain everyone else saw. Just Vera. Alara's gaze lingered. Her mind replayed the words from the week before. "I'm in love with you." Her chest tightened. Carefully, she reached up and brushed a few strands of Vera's fringe away from her forehead. The touch was gentle enough not to wake her. "Maybe I might..." The words stopped before they could fully form. Instead, Alara leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to Vera's forehead. Vera stirred slightly, instinctively tightening her arm around Alara in her sleep. Alara let herself relax into the warmth. Eventually, sleep found her too, despite the unwavering thud in her chest. And sometime during the night, without either of them noticing, they drifted closer, ending up wrapped comfortably in each other's arms. Morning arrived quietly across campus. Students drifted between lecture halls with coffee cups in hand, the usual low buzz of conversation settling into the rhythm of another weekday. Then the front doors of the main administration building opened. The sharp, deliberate click of expensive heels echoed across the tiled floor. Heads turned, not because the sound was loud, but because of the confidence behind it. The woman walking through the lobby carried herself with effortless authority. Her posture was perfectly straight, shoulders squared in the way of someone used to being listened to the moment she entered a room. Everything about her appearance was precise. Tailored coat, immaculate hair, the calm expression of someone entirely accustomed to getting exactly what she came for. People moved slightly out of her path without quite realizing why. She approached the front desk. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile. "Good morning, how may I help?" "Alara Finch," the woman said. Her voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. "Where can I find her?" The receptionist glanced at the computer, fingers tapping quickly across the keyboard. "She hasn't checked into her morning lecture yet," she said. "If she's not in class, she's most likely in her dorm." The woman gave a short nod. "Which dormitory?" The receptionist hesitated slightly. "May I ask your relationship to Ms. Finch?" she asked politely. The woman's gaze lifted slowly from the desk. The look she gave wasn't dramatic. It was simply sharp, measured. The kind of look that made people instinctively straighten in their chairs. "I'm her mother," she said evenly. A brief pause followed. Then she added, calm but unmistakably firm, "I'm visiting from out of town and would prefer not to spend the morning searching the entire campus for my daughter." The receptionist blinked. Recognition flickered across her face a moment later. "Oh, of course." She glanced back at the screen. "She's registered in Dormitory C, room 314. "Thank you," the woman said. She turned without another word. The heels resumed their steady rhythm as she crossed campus. Students stepped aside again as she moved through the pathways, her presence cutting through the usual morning noise with quiet precision. Dormitory C came into view ahead. Alara shoved the dorm door open and immediately pushed Vera out into the hallway. "Hurry, get a move on," she muttered under her breath, grabbing Vera's sleeve and dragging her along the corridor. They were already late. Morning lectures had come and gone while they'd been asleep, and now the clock on Alara's phone was counting down the minutes before the next class started. Vera, meanwhile, looked like she had just rolled out of bed. Because she had. Her hair was still slightly messy, her hoodie wrinkled from sleeping in it, and she rubbed at one eye lazily as Alara hurried them down the hall. "Finch," Vera said, voice still rough with sleep. "You know running doesn't make time move faster." Alara shot her a glare over her shoulder. "This is your fault." "My fault?" Vera echoed, amused. "Yes. If you hadn't decided to turn my bed into your personal sleepover spot." "Oh, please," Vera interrupted playfully. "It's not my fault you find me so comfortable." Alara stopped abruptly, turning on her. "That is not what happened." Vera grinned, completely unfazed. "Relax, Finch," she said, stretching her arms above her head. "We've still got 15 minutes before the next lecture starts." "That's not enough time when you move like a sloth," Alara snapped, already grabbing Vera's sleeve again and pulling her toward the stairwell. "You're lucky I carried you halfway across campus yesterday," Vera muttered dramatically. "I didn't ask you to." "You absolutely did." "I absolutely did not." Vera rolled her eyes, but her gaze dropped briefly toward Alara's ankle as they walked. Alara was still favoring it. Not badly, but enough that Vera noticed. She slowed a little beside her. "Hey," Vera said, tone softer now. "Are you actually okay to walk on that?" Alara followed her gaze and gave a small dismissive shrug. "It's fine. You said that yesterday, too." She tilted her head slightly. "If you want, I can carry you again." Alara stopped just long enough to give her a flat look. "Absolutely not," Vera raised an eyebrow. "Your limp says otherwise." "It's not as bad today," Alara said, continuing down the hall, though she still favored the ankle slightly. "And I am not being carried through campus like some wounded soldier." Vera smirked. "Your loss. I was going to do the heroic thing again." Alara scoffed. "You're insufferable." They reached the end of the hallway and slowed slightly as students passed by in the opposite direction. Vera glanced sideways at Alara. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I'm actually a little sad." Alara narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "Why?" Vera sighed theatrically. "I never even got to see your sleeping face." Alara stared at her. "What?" "What a missed opportunity," Vera continued with exaggerated disappointment. "Don't I at least get a little peck to cheer me up?" "Like hell you do," Alara shot back instantly. Vera clutched her chest. Wow. Cruel. Then she sniffed lightly at the sleeve of her hoodie and grinned. Well, at least my hoodie still smells like you, she said smugly. I'm never washing it again. Alara stopped. Slowly. She reached out and grabbed Vera by the shoulder. Before Vera could even react, Alara leaned forward and kissed her. Quick, direct. Vera blinked in surprise. Alara pulled back immediately, cheeks faintly warm. Don't be gross, she muttered. Wash it. Vera recovered fast. Not nearly convincing enough, Captain. And before Alara could move again, Vera caught her by the waist and gently pushed her back against the hallway wall. This kiss wasn't quick. It was deeper, warmer. Alara's hands instinctively grabbed the front of Vera's hoodie as she kissed her back, their foreheads brushing slightly when they finally broke apart. Neither of them noticed the soft click of a door opening further down the hall, or the sharp heels approaching. They rested there for a second, breathing close, foreheads nearly touching. Then, Alara! The voice cut through the moment like glass. Sharp. Cold. The sound sent a shiver straight down Alara's spine. She froze. Vera felt it instantly, the sudden tension in her body. Alara slowly turned her head. Mother. Standing in the doorway entrance of her dorm, arms crossed neatly over her chest, was her mother. Her expression was controlled, but the disappointment in her eyes was unmistakable. Her gaze flicked briefly toward Vera before returning to Alara. So this, she said coolly, is why you've been missing class. The air in the hallway turned heavy. Alara swallowed. Without looking at her, she spoke quietly. You should go. Vera understood immediately. She didn't argue, didn't joke. She simply stepped back. As she passed Alara's mother, Vera lowered her head slightly in polite acknowledgement, not daring to say a word. The woman didn't acknowledge her. Her attention was already back on her daughter. The hallway felt strangely empty as Vera walked away. Alara remained standing where she was, her head lowered slightly, shoulders tense. Her mother's gaze didn't soften. Care to explain yourself? She said evenly. Alara? The hallway felt too quiet once Vera disappeared. Alara didn't move at first, her head still lowered, fingers curling slightly at her sides. It's not what it looks like, she said finally. She was just helping me. I hurt my ankle at football and she was just... I've heard enough, Alara. The interruption was immediate. Cold. Her mother's gaze didn't waver. You expect me to believe such a transparent excuse? Alara's chest tightened. It's not an excuse, she said, lifting her head slightly. She carried me back because I couldn't walk properly. That's all. Her mother's expression remained unchanged. I allowed you to come here because I believed you were capable of conducting yourself like an adult, she said evenly. I trusted that you would take your education seriously, that you would make something of this opportunity. Her eyes flicked briefly down the hallway, where Vera had just been. I did not send you here to miss lectures and entangle yourself with other students. Alara swallowed, frustration rising. I'm not entangled, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. And I'm not failing. I've kept up with everything. I just missed one class. One becomes two. Two becomes a pattern, her mother replied sharply. And suddenly everything you've worked for starts slipping. That's not happening, Alara insisted. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Her mother's voice didn't raise. If anything, it got quieter. That girl is a distraction, a bad influence, whether you're willing to admit it or not. Alara's jaw tightened. She's not, she said firmly. You don't even know her. I don't need to, her mother replied. I saw enough. That's not fair. Life rarely is. Alara took a small step forward, frustration finally breaking through. You're making assumptions based on one moment. And you're defending someone you barely know over your own future, her mother cut in. That landed. Alara's voice faltered for a second before she pushed through it. She's not ruining anything, she said. If anything, she's been helping me. Her mother's expression hardened. Enough. The word shut the space between them down instantly. No more arguing. No more justifying this. Alara stilled. This environment clearly isn't benefiting you the way I intended, her mother continued. So I'll be making arrangements. A pause. Pack your things. We'll be leaving on Friday. The words hit like a drop. You can continue your studies elsewhere, somewhere more structured. Alara's breath caught. Wait, no, she said quickly, stepping forward. Please, you can't just... I'll fix it. I'll do better, I promise. I won't miss anything else, Her mother didn't react. My decision is final. The calm certainty in her voice made it worse. I'll contact the necessary offices and begin the transfer process today. She turned slightly, already mentally moving on. Alara, I expected more from you. The words lingered heavier than anything else she'd said. Then, I'll inform you once everything is arranged. And just like that, she walked away down the hallway, heels echoing sharply against the floor, leaving Alara standing there, heart racing, thoughts spiraling, and the weight of what she was about to lose pressing in all at once.